Hello, I am Katie and this is Erin, and today we're going to introduce you to the MVPT-4, which is the Motor Free Visual Perception Test, the 4th edition.
So the MVPT-4 is a norm-referenced multiple choice assessment that doesn't require the use of any motor function, which is kind of what differentiates it from other visual perception assessments. It's a relatively quick assessment that looks at visual perceptual abilities in children and adults, ranging from age 4 to even 80 years and older. Because it only looks at the client's visual perceptual abilities, it's considered a bottom-up assessment. And this assessment, like I said, it's relatively quick. It only takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete and score. And it can be purchased online from websites such as therapro.com for $195. And when you purchase that, you'll receive a few things. You'll get the instruction booklet, the testing manual, and the record form, which is where, of course, you'll record the scores, and it's a new one every time you have a new client. This assessment's a little bit different than some of the other ones we've looked at, such as the Peabody, because there's not a specific starting point based on the age of your client. You always start at item number 1 and go all the way through to item number 45 at the end. And there's no ceiling or basal levels. So like I said, 1 through 45, no matter who you're working with and how they're performing. So like I said, you'll go from 1 to 45 to assess visual perceptual abilities, which includes visual discrimination, spatial relationships, figure ground, visual closure, and visual memory. So these 5 areas, Katie's going to go a little bit more in depth on and explain what that means.
All right, so I'm going to give a brief definition of each of these, an example, and then in the live portion, we're going to look at these a little bit more in depth to help you get a better understanding of how to differentiate the 5 different areas. So first off, spatial relationships. This looks at an individual's ability to perceive the position of objects in relationship to other objects or the individual themselves. So for example, this would be walking down a crowded hallway and not bumping into anything. This might also be looking at a picture of 2 buildings and being able to tell which one is closer than the other. Visual discrimination is the ability to determine differences and similarities between objects. So this is really important, and this can help us understand and interpret the environment. So for example, this one is going to be that game of can you spot the difference between 2 pictures? Figure ground is your ability to distinguish an object from the background. So for this one, you've got to think about where's Waldo or I spy. And then visual memory is your ability to recognize a previously presented stimulus or picture or object, anything like that, and be able to recall it after a brief interval. So for this one, if I were to present you a picture of a smiley face, and then in the future I showed you 3 more pictures, you would have to tell me which smiley face I showed you. And then finally, the 5th one is visual closure. And this is the ability to perceive a whole figure when only fragments of it are shown. So for example, if I were to show you a picture of half a bicycle, you would be able to tell me that that is a bicycle and not a car. So with these 5 things that this test looks at, some of the common diagnoses that you're going to see using this test include traumatic brain injury, a stroke, dyslexia, dementia, brain tumors, or other neurodegenerative disorders. So now let's get into how do you administer the MVPT-4. So first you're going to have the client seated at a table, and you're going to position the assessment book about 12 to 15 inches away from their body at midline. So generally when giving this assessment, the therapist is sitting on the opposite side of the table as the client. However, since the client doesn't have to manually do anything, they can either voice their answer or they can point to it. The therapist might choose to sit on the same side of the table as the client so that they're able to see what answer the client is choosing. So before beginning the assessment, the therapist will read a standardized statement explaining all of the instructions. And then before each of the sections in the MVPT4, those 5 areas that we just discussed, there is an example to help the client understand what the questions are going to be asking. Now, those instructions can be given to the client as many times as they need until they understand what they're going to be doing. So for each question, the OT will read the prompt aloud that is going to be shown on their side of the booklet, and the client will look at the pictures on the other side and either state their answer or point to their answer. And then the therapist will record their answers on the record sheet by circling their choice. So there are a few important things to note when you're administering the MVPT4. First off, it's very important that the record sheet is not visible to the client. And this is because the answers are bolded on the record sheet. So if the client can see the answers, you're not going to get an accurate measure of their visual perceptual abilities. Also, it's important to note that there is no time limit associated with the MVPT4. So that means the client can take as long as they need to answer any of the questions. This is a change from the MVPT3 that had a time limit associated with each question. So the last thing to note is that there should be no casual conversation going on between the therapist and the client. So any rapport that you want to create with the client needs to happen before you begin your assessment. And now we're going to go into how to score it.
Yeah, so with scoring, like I said, you'll have this record form, which kind of looks, it's hard for y'all to see, but it looks similar to the Peabody, where you fill in the date of the test, date of birth of the client, and then figure out their chronological age. And then there's that bell curve to find where they land on that. But like I said, it's very simple. I felt like it was a lot easier than the Peabody because it's either A, B, C, or D. The correct answer is bolded on there for you, which makes it easy to not grade, but assess. And then once you get through the entire thing, you'll mark what they put, and if it matches up with the bolded one, of course, that's correct. And then at the end, you'll go through all 45 items, and then you'll subtract the number of errors that they had, and that'll give you your raw score. And then once you calculate that raw score, you can go into the instruction booklet where you'll find in the appendices, the norms tables where you can convert that raw score and convert it into a standard score, a percentile rank, as well as an age equivalent by using those norms tables. So you'll see how they compare to norms. So I guess now that we've talked about the scoring, we can go a little bit into the psychometric properties. We rated the standardization process of the MVPT4 as excellent because the kit includes a very detailed outline for the administration process as well as the scoring process. And in addition to that, the manual provides evidence of strong reliability and validity. So we looked at the overall reliability and we rated that as adequate because the Cronbach's alpha value was 0.80. However, when looking at individual ages, it ranged from 0.70 to 0.87, and that 0.70 falls below that excellent score. So that's why that was our reasoning behind calling it adequate. The coefficient value is expected to be lower on tests such as the MVPT4 because there are multiple types of tasks being used to obtain the test score. So as for the performance skills, this assessment doesn't assess any performance skills. However, we said the following performance skills would assist the client in completing this assessment, And those performance skills were positions, attends, navigates, questions, and then searches or locates. And again, this is a bottom-up assessment, so it doesn't look at specific occupations. This is more geared towards assessing client factors specifically related to those visual functions that we talked about. So as you can see, this is a fairly simple assessment to give to a client as well as to score. It's the same process regardless of the age of the client. So we're going to give you a brief overview. We're going to go through and show you how it would be administered to someone. Katie will act as the OT and I will be the client. And yeah.
Hi, Erin. I'm Katie. I am an occupational therapist, and I'm here to ask you a few questions. Do you have any questions for me before we begin?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. Today, you will look at some designs, and I will ask you a question about each one. Some of the things you will do will be very easy, and some will be harder, but just try your best. The answers to the questions will be on the pages I show you. Choose the one that you think is the best answer. You don't have to draw or write anything. You can point to the answer or say the letter that is under it, but you do have to pay attention. Let's try a practice one first. Okay, look at this. Now find the one exactly like it here. Okay, do you understand how this is going to go?
Yep.
Or we'll go ahead and move on. Look at this. Now find the exact one like it here.
A.
A. Look at this. Now find the exact one like it here.
C.
C. Look at this. Now find the exact one like it here.
C.
C. All right, so as you can see, it's very simple. I'm simply just reading exactly what it tells me, and then the client is seeing it up here and is able to pick down here. So as you move on with the test, it does get a lot harder, and they do have to work and think more. So for children that are younger, the last parts of this are going to be very challenging, and same with older adults. Just based on how you lose your visual perceptual skills as you age. But according to the test, and to keep it standardized, you do have to give the entire test to everyone, regardless of age. Then the last thing we'd like to note is that there is on the answer key a NR response, which is for no response. So if the client says like they don't know, they have no idea, you can circle the no response, which will count as a missed answer when you finish. All right, that's all.
Thank you.